everybody. Welcome to iCast Guidance, your weekly Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPG podcast, where every week Rich, Garret, and I pick up a subject around the culture of gaming and discuss it with you. So without further ado, sharpen up those daggers. We're going to get started right now.
All right, you guys. So it's Sunday morning. It is January 19th, and I was laying in bed last night at about 10:42, scrolling TikTok, and it froze. And I'm going to put this out there. It froze on the weirdest video. Now, the video continued to play, but I could not scroll past it. And it was the video of Obi-Wan Kenobi's message about the Jedi Order and the Republic falling. That's sort of recorded for anyone to hear going forward. It was the most haunting thing ever. It was really disturbing.
It's interesting.
You know, it's a really terrifying reality check about this whole thing.
What's that?
This, make no mistake, like the fact that TikTok has been banned, it's not about the app. It's not about like, oh, we miss TikTok, we miss our brain rot. It's that it was a platform where people went to learn information and share information, and there were a lot of social movements sparked through there. It was a place where people went to exercise their First Amendment right to speak freely. And it's not Democrat versus Republican. It was politicians across the board in all our branches of government who pulled together to shut this app down.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm on the same page. Nathan, I think you kind of said that very poetically, and like I agree with you. I went to TikTok for like everything, I was in so many different, branches of TikTok with D&D and whatever, games, books, board games, that's just the stuff I do. Car culture and stuff that I, my work and everything. And it was just so, I guess, free compared to some of the other sites out there. And just to, see that disappear, like what you said, it was, all the rumors have been going, and it's been said that it's going to be banned. And I didn't believe it. I was one of those that was just like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I wasn't on TikTok yesterday. I actually haven't been on it recently that much. I think the idea of it going away. But I popped open Instagram, and a bunch of things on my feed. It was just the picture of it's been banned.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
I've never, ever had TikTok.
Really?
I've never had TikTok. I've never had an attachment to it. I've never used it. I was personally against having it because I knew it would just be a terrible waste of my brain power, like scrolling aimlessly. But that doesn't mean, it's not scary. Like, I think if you're not scared by the fact that the government can take away a platform for First Amendment speech, again, Republican or Democratic, conservative or liberal, that was a platform where you could go and share your thoughts and speak. The fact that they can take that away is fucking terrifying. And if you're not terrified, you're wrong.
Yeah, I'm totally with you by that. There's so many people I've heard say, I like Instagram. It's not really a big deal to me. I never use TikTok. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're missing the point here.
Yes.
And the point is that your right to free speech has been taken away. And make no mistake, too, this is not about a Chinese breach of security. This is not about your data collection. This is not about, this is about, well, number one, this is about capitalism, right? If you look at the drivers behind this thing, you were either the CEO of a competing social media platform driving the bus, or you were a senator who was in charge of pushing this through and simultaneously investing in all the competing companies.
Yes.
And there are plenty of them out there. Go look that up. Go look at the stock trades on the parts of the senators that supported the TikTok ban. And guess what? They're all buying Meta.
Yes. And everybody's pouring into, what's that new app?
Bright Blue Sky?
No.
Oh, Red Note. Red Note,
which I think is just a hilarious backfire.
I know. And actually, that's really causing some alarm.
Really funny.
Garrett, do you know what Red Note is?
Nope. Never even heard of it.
Okay. So a lot of the TikTok creators have found an app called Red Note, and whether or not it's equivalent to TikTok in terms of its, its software and its algorithm and all that is I'm not sure. I haven't looked at it. However, Red Note is actually owned by the Chinese government. And when you download the app and create an account, you have to swear a solidarity to the Chinese socialist government. And over several million people have moved to this app. And our senators are just going like, oh my God, what have we done?
Oh my God.
What have we done? So there's that. And I will tell you this. I did it just because, first of all, I think Facebook is a toxic hellhole. I hate Facebook. Instagram, I could tolerate, but now when I scroll, every third thing I scroll to is an ad. Mm-hmm. And also the algorithm is one of those things where I used to go there to find things I didn't know about. And now the algorithm only shows me things I'm going to be interested in. And I'm like, wow, I'm bored to death.
That.
So in response to that, and by the requests of a lot of the people on TikTok, I deleted all of my Meta apps. Meta Horizon, Facebook Messenger, Facebook, and Instagram have been deleted from my phone, and they're not coming back. I didn't delete my accounts, but I did delete the apps from my phone so they can no longer collect data. I'm done with them. I'm just like, the only thing I probably will miss will be Facebook Marketplace because I used to shop for antique VWs on that, but I'll go to another site. Anyway, that's enough of that.
Anywho.
I got to tell you guys out there that are listening to this, we are so excited by the support and enthusiasm that we are getting from you. There have been comments coming in both from the standpoint of the videos that like Rich is making around role playing and the podcast and some of the live play that we're getting back into. We are live on the first and third Tuesdays of every month on YouTube at Wither and Bloom Studios, where we are playing season 2 of our new Dungeons and Dragons campaign called Rising. And we are actively in the works of making another live session that will take place on the alternate Tuesday to those. And that one, you guys, nobody's doing anything like this. We're so excited to bring this to you. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but we're excited, and look for that around the end of February is the goal to get that online. So come visit us this Tuesday night because we are at the third Tuesday in January. We're going to be showing our D&D campaign. It's actually session 1.
Yeah, we're kicking it off.
I know. It's really good. So we hope to see you there. We hope to see you there. We got some really cool stuff planned. It's not just a simple sit back and listen to a bunch of people on a split screen play D&D. There's a little more to it. So come along for the ride. All right. We're talking about creative world building today.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what we do, right?
It is what we do.
Well, I mean, honestly, the way Todd has been running this campaign, or our Emberfell Etania campaign, is that we all can come to the table with world elements that we want to build. So like Rich and Olivia have built up Amakora with Todd, right? I have built a city through actually the Amakora Daggerheart one shot that Todd and I still have to talk about. Eric and Addie have both done various parts of world building pertaining to the character's backstory. Todd has handed us this opportunity that, like, if your character belongs somewhere and you want to take like building that area into your own hands, go ahead, do that. And it's really just pushed the collaborative storytelling aspect to the next fucking level. And honestly, it's really freeing.
Nathan, thank you for that. I mean, I appreciate that, number one, but number two, it's like, it's a place I genuinely believe in when it comes to world building. I also believe, as a teacher in arts and design, I believe that collaborative work creates so many more layered opportunities to bring more to the table. I don't want the world to be completely designed by me. Like, I want you guys in this.
I agree on that. I have not contributed much to this world yet, but I plan to.
Well, I want to make it clear too that as a DM, offering you the opportunity is not placing an obligation on you, right?
Yeah.
And some of the players are just like, look, I want to play D&D. I don't have time to world build. I just want to come to the table and exist in the world that's made. And I'm like, yeah, Awesome. Let's do that. But others of you are like, oh my God, I've got this incredible backstory. And I'm like, yes, you could design your own city and that you're from and make it all happen. What are the NPCs like? You do it. And some people run with that.
It's funny. It adds so much more flavor to the world because you can kind of pick up like Todd's touch on these game elements. It's like playing different video games by certain studios. You're like, oh, that's so FromSoft or that's so like Nintendo or something. But like you can feel Todd's artistry and work on one area, and then you're somewhere completely different, and it feels like a whole different vibe because somebody else has made it and left their touch and their interests upon it. I'm currently in the process of building Elder Grove, where Circe is from. And it's so funny looking at what I've written and being like, bro, that is so me. Like this is like way too funny.
Is there a bar on every single corner?
No, actually, Hey now.
Sorry.
I had, for whatever reason, thinking about like the street layout and the street design. And I had written something about something Circe had seen on the East Radial Avenue. Radial meaning like there's a central origin point and this street goes from the center out. So from this center, it goes, the streets all radiate out from there in these central avenues. So almost thinking unit circle there, but like this place is already very like science and data driven. Not in the way Amakora is, that it's like very inventive and progressive and just like not like aimlessly throwing shit together, but like doing some crazy shit. Elder Grove is much more like, okay, well, let's research this very carefully. And then like, once we do this, we can investigate these areas more.
Oh my God, you're bringing up something that I so want to talk about. And I love this. So you've got two examples here. You talk about this central, we're talking urban design, right? And we've got this central location, this central hub that everything radiate outs from in like a radial symmetry, right? And that denotes that kind of geography says, these are people who plan. These are people who are careful, right? But then we go to Amakora and we see the mismatched kind of streets and the houses that have no sort of harmony to their design. They're just built the way they need to be built because there is this more chaotic approach to how things are invented, both equally invested in technology, but two completely different mindsets for how that technology is organized. Yes. And you can see what grows out of that. That is the way to world build right there. Now, the thing is that where do we start? Because I think some of our listeners are going to be like, yeah, cool, but I can never figure out how to get off the ground when it comes to starting something like that. And for me, and Garret, I'll throw this over to you in a minute if you want me to, but for me, it always starts with a visual. And for me, it's the map, right? So I will start with a map, and that map can be made, like throwing rice on the paper. For those of you that don't know that, there's this method of generating an organically shaped map of a continent, let's say, by dropping rice onto a sheet of paper and tracing the outlines, right? And this gives you a very sort of, unpredictable shape to your continent. And what do you do from there? Well, you kind of look at it and you say, well, this is a landmass. Where's the water? How does the water get in? Would there be a river where that mouth opens up? Would that river flow in this direction? Okay, so now we can start to plan that map. And one thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing. And from there, you can go crazy. You can be like, well, if this river valley created fertile soil, this would be an agrarian population that would thrive off of its farming and possibly its fishing. Boom, we're off to the races.
That's awesome.
This guy, he's awesome. Cooking over here. He's ready to make another world.
I am.
I could tell. I mean, this is bringing it back. In our group, we played Strahd for a while, and it was out of a module. No hate on modules, but I could tell when we were done with that campaign, or as we were coming to the end of that campaign, Todd was so excited to just create this world that we could all bring elements into, and like the just spark in his eye. I mean, him just explaining a map, he was just, going nuts on it. But I love the, collaborative, bringing everything together, and how Nathan was just saying, your town is completely different than someone else's town, which I think benefits with the collaborative because everyone has a different thought or idea.
Yeah.
Different style.
Versus, Todd, who just might have one style just kind of spread throughout.
Well, the way you make that style, the way you get that style to even develop, there's this idea in painting, right? When we critique a painting, we will look at the various elements that are present that compose this painting. We have a composition in front of us. And if the painting is done well, then the integration of those elements will make sense, meaning the painter works hard at solving all the problems of not making things look like they're stuck on, right? Imagine you make this painting, everything looks good, it's a landscape, and somebody comes in with a kitty cat sticker and sticks it on the grass, right? It's like, look, there's a kitty in the grass, but you're like, no, there's not a kitty on the grass. There's a kitty cat sticker on the grass. I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
I
can't wait.
There's a kitty cat sticker on the grass. And that is because the kitty cat sticker does not integrate with the form of the painting. It was stuck on. Some world builders come to their world building with a similar idea. What they have is a whole collection of cool things. And then they drop those things into a landscape because they're like, well, this needs to be somewhere, so let's put it somewhere. And they don't totally make sense for why they're there. So now let's flip it. Let's work in another direction. Forget all the cool things. I got no cool things. I'm going to start with the landscape, and the landscape will talk to me. And the landscape will give birth to the cool things by looking at what's available from the standpoint of resources and geography and all that stuff. Now, all of a sudden, things make sense in your world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. I do think there is value if you're being careful and not being greedy. There is so much value in coming from the idea of like, I have this cool idea that I want to pursue, and building from there. I think sometimes it can be a bit much to be like, oh, I want to do this crazy cool thing and I have to do this and this and this to make it possible in this world. No, the way I like to go about it, either when I've been creating Eldergrove or the other city, Umbria, that my character Nokrin was from in our Indira's Embers campaign, I started with a core idea of something that interested me. For Eldergrove, it's about, data-driven, logical thinking. I was interested in what it would look like to have a society that is like so data-driven and logically focused. And then for Umbria, I was interested in the concept of darkness and the fact that darkness still scares me as a person and what I could milk from that and put into a city.
Yeah. So those things that you just described, I would call those the seeds, right? So I think all the world building that you do should start with a seed, but everything should grow from that seed. And that seed, when it grows and dies, should refertilize the soil and cause new growth. Meaning, let's take the darkness example, right? That if darkness is the place you're starting from, then darkness should permeate your lore. Darkness should permeate your geography. Darkness should permeate your politics to some degree. Yes. So it shouldn't just be a standalone thing. You are injecting a kind of fertilizer that will get deeply embedded in all of the DNA of your story and your world. Right. And that's the one thing. So, like in my example where I start with the map, yes, I understand that the map is going to read to me or speak to me and I'm going to read from it. But I still need to inject that unique thing. That unique thing could be in the magic system. That unique thing could be in the politics. That unique thing could be in a genetic mutation in all creatures that cause them to be able to do something. But somehow we need to put that thing in there.
Mm-hmm. I like how I'm just thinking I've never really, like what you were saying, just come up with an idea and created this whole thing around it. So I'm kind of learning from the two of you right now. But I like what you said about like the darkness and how Todd said that that's like kind of the seed. And it made me think back to, I love Critical Role, watch Critical Role, but it just made me think darkness. what is Percy's town in campaign 1?
Percy's town is Whitestone.
Sorry. So when they first come to that town, everything is described because it's taken over by the Briarwoods, and everything is just dead or despair, and there's just like fog over the town, and everyone is like hiding in their homes, and just like that seed, it plants it, and you can make a whole thing around just darkness.
Right. And that's the trick to that is keeping that seed simple but poignant.
Yeah.
Yes.
So because that can go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great example.
Like
Whitestone and the Briarwoods for sure. Well, another thing about this that I tend to gravitate towards, and this might not be for all GMs, but I'm going to go back to the map for a second on this one. But where, rather than arbitrarily dropping your cities and towns, right? And I feel like, I'll throw a little shade at Strahd for a minute here. I can't make sense of the way Strahd's laid out. Okay. I can't make the map, meaning not the campaign, but the map itself. There's not a lot of logic. I can't find a lot of logic to the way things are in that campaign. Okay, whatever. What I like to do is in my map, I'm going to imagine like how I've got roads in my map, right? And they connect things. Well, where did they come from? They're not just arbitrary things, right? So I would think all the way back to nomadic civilizations on that continent that were first evolving, and where would they need to go from and to? And so, for example, in our Emberfell campaign, the continent of Emberfell, one of the key roads runs from the southernmost location to the northernmost, right? And that's because one of the larger civilizations and the other continent pass through the northernmost regions of this area. So if you had people that were moving across a continent, this would be the logical route. I say, okay, logical route. Now, where do the towns fall on that road? Odds are, if nomadic people are going to travel, they're going to travel during the day. So you're going to have a location where people rest, and then they're going to travel for a single day. So one day's travel, there's another resting point. Resting points turn into settlements because people just stop resting after a while, set up trade posts, set up, like homes with agriculture and whatnot. So I like to space my towns one day's travel apart because that is how they logically would have been settled and developed in the first place.
I like that.
That makes so much sense.
Going back to what you were saying is just like roads and everything. It's now lost to me because I found this guy on TikTok and I didn't save his video. So I'm hoping I can find him on some other media outlet. But he had created his own modules, essentially like 5e supplements, where he created these very, very in-depth magic manuals where I don't know if you've seen this guy, Todd, where he created like glyphs for how the magic would be, I guess the somatic component of how you had to trace you're going to cast fireball or you're going to come at the example is really, I think it was like a gate seal or something like that. So the way you would draw the spell to cast the spell, he had this whole supplement on very in-depth spell making, but then he started creating maps and he would take the glyph.
Oh, yes.
And create the roads or part of the town was designed mainly around that glyph.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
So he had created this town that was essentially, it was like a planter gate or something. And the main roads shaped out the design of this spell. And then he branched off from there. And if you ever got this like aerial view, and then he described this town as like these very high wizards, which made me think of like your town, Nathan. But it's like, he was like, if someone were to ever see this from the sky, they might see the main roads converging into this glyph, and it might like, what happens if this road was destroyed?
Well,
would it open up a gate?
Yeah. And not only that, it makes you wonder, it's like, wow, were the roads created because the glyph itself and the meaning of the glyph was so heavily embedded in the culture that people just happened to go that way? Or were the roads created by an ancient sect of wizards that wanted the roads to read like this glyph? I love that.
Yeah. And he goes into depth that it's like, okay, is it actually like a glyph. If you were to break the thing, would something come out? Or like if it was a gate locking in,
right,
like a force,
right.
So it's like there's so many ways that you could roll with that,
right? Yeah, and this is something else that we need to consider when we world build, right? Because we're often concerned in world building with how do we get to the details. I'm talking about starting with a map and building my way inward into something detailed like story and lore and artifacts and whatever. In this case, it's kind of like it's going outward. Yes. It's the 30,000 foot view that matters to kind of unlock the story, which is really cool.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think helps connect things a little better? Because I think what we're getting to is the fact that people in the real world don't just do things willy-nilly. Where roads don't just happen because, there should be a road like here in this random spot, towns don't just happen by chance. People do things for a reason, right? So what has helped me create things specifically within our
Emberfell?
Our Emberfell Etania
Good one. Thanks for remembering the name of my campaign.
I was looking for Etania.
Etania, sorry.
Anyway, within our Etania campaign is the body of lore that Todd has built up and shared with all of us. So I was able to use everything that was happening with the mycelial network, given that the two different hearts were stolen and taken to Emberfell. I was able to use that to describe how this society in Umbria had settled underground. And at one point, the leaders decided to spread misinformation that the two hearts were going to spell the immediate end of the world above the surface. And everybody had to evacuate the surface and live underground. And now the world above is a wasteland. And I mean, they're saying they're living in the world that we are playing in right now, saying the world above is a wasteland as the living below, and keeping that secret that they're lying from everybody who lives down under. And anybody who escapes now knows the secret and must be hunted down, brought back. But unfortunately, they're insane from the terrors of from the upper world.
So this is kind of the Plato's cave scenario on some level, right? Because they've only known one way of thinking, but then they finally escape. We're going to have to take a break in a second, but I wanted to throw something out there because, something you're saying about this, and I'm realizing how lucky I am as a GM to be able to have somebody like you playing in my game so invested that you're building a city and that you're building backstory. And I got to tell you, I think the reason for that is because as a GM, my goal is to let go. My goal is to not have an iron grip on this world and to let all of us be part of making this happen. I think that gives you permission, or at least desire, or hopefully enthusiasm to go craft this stuff. And I'm like, yes, that's what we're looking for. So GMs, if you're out there and you're having trouble with your players getting into the world you're making, give them the world. Give it to them. I think that's definitely something you need to know.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a break. We're going to hear some words. And then when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about some resources we use for world building, some resources we like, some resources we don't like. That's my part. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right. See you in a few. Hello, esteemed listeners. I got something to tell you. January 21st, 2025, Wither and Bloom Studios turns 1 year old on YouTube. We are proud of this, and we want to thank you for coming along for this ride. We love that you're here. We love the time you take to put in comments and give us feedback on this, and we are going to keep going. We're passionate about it. We love the response from you, and we just find this to be an incredible amount of fun. Now, we also have 26 episodes of iCast Guidance on the books. We have not missed a week. It's a testament to our dedication to what's going on here, and we plan on keeping it up. So if you like that, and if you want to support that, can you head over to ko-fi.com, that is spelled ko-fi.com/Wither and Bloom Studios. And there you can buy us a cup of coffee. You can subscribe for a monthly membership. And it tells us, hey, you like this and you want to see it keep going. And that gives us a little bit of a positive reaffirmation of, hey, we're doing a good job too. So think about doing that. Now, if you can't, and that's okay, you can also head over to Wither and Bloom Studios on YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel and you can join us in our live sessions. They take place the first and third Tuesday of every month, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we are playing D&D, but we also include you. You can participate in the chat in the game. There are ways to do that. You gotta come check that out. We're doing something I don't think a lot of other channels are doing, if any, and I think you're gonna like it. So head over to check that out. And on top of that, on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month, we have a new show we're releasing at the end of February. Not gonna tell you what that is yet, but we also think that one totally unique. So we're looking forward to bringing that to you as well. And on top of that, could you just maybe tell a friend? Tell a friend about iCast Guidance, or tell a friend to subscribe to Wither and Bloom Studios on YouTube. Have them come along for the ride too. We are enjoying this party. Now, let's get back to the show. All right, we're back from the break. And as you know, after the break, we always do 3-sentence backstory. So for those of you that are new listening to this podcast, first of all, I encourage you to go back and listen to the other episodes so you can kind of see our trajectory and how we developed. But we play a game after the break called 3-sentence backstory. We say 3 sentences. Each of us says a sentence. The first sentence is where we're from. The second sentence is a significant thing that happened in our lives. And the third sentence is what put us on the road to adventure. These 3 sentences formulate a lightweight backstory that you can apply to your characters. Over time, we are going to aggregate these into some PDF somewhere that maybe you'll have access to. But we're going to play today. And I think, Nathan, you're going to start us off. Is that right?
Yes, I am.
All right, let's go. Where are you from?
I'm from a laboratory that grows clones to arm a war effort.
Okay. Sentence number 2 is
As a significant thing that happened in your life
event.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it. It's kind of cheesy, but I'm going to run with it just because of what you did, Nathan. One day we were visited by this strange wizard type being. I was wondering why we were growing these clones.
You fucking asshole. You're going for Clone Wars.
It's what popped in my head when Nathan did this. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. Here we go. J.R.R. Tolkien's Clone Wars.
Yes.
All right. So a strange wizard type being visited you, wondering why
we were growing these clones. Yeah.
Okay. I can't. I gotta switch gears here somehow. And I'm not even sure how. Let me think. Oh my God, this is hard. I mean, it's not hard. It's hard to get out.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. It's not your fault. This is the challenge, right? The challenge is the challenge. So I got to be able to get out of it. What put me on the road to adventure? I think what put me on the road to adventure was I was training with a very, very limited battalion of like, people like me. Obviously, we're clones. And the home world, we would go off world to do this training. My home world was destroyed. And so this wound up taking this entire, cloned race and wiping it out. There's only 10 of us. And so I decided I had to do something. So that was what set me off on the road to adventure.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
You turned that around.
I tried. I mean, I wasn't liking the clone thing, so I just blew up the whole world.
All right, Death Star.
Yeah. All right. So let's keep going because we were going to talk about some resources in creative world building, what we like to use. And, I've got a couple. I've got some things I like and some things I don't like. Here's something, though, I think that goes to both player and DM, GM. And that is, I'm pretty particular about my note taking and how I organize my thoughts, how I organize my space. I don't know if this is something we want to talk about here and what we use, but for note taking just in general, whether it's characters or whatever, what do you guys use? This is not a plug.
This is not an ad. I like pen and paper, frankly.
I do pen and paper too. Honestly.
I will do notes on pen and paper. A lot of times I just use like a notes app on the computer. Just type something up.
Oh, on the Apple Notes.
Yeah.
Apple Notes is awesome.
That's honestly what I've been using a lot lately. Yeah. I don't know.
I think there's nothing better for committing something to memory than pencil and paper. Like it's actually like physically a different pathway in your brain from typing something. The stuff you write is the stuff you remember better. And this is why I don't even take notes on my computer, like in classes. I always do pencil and paper. And I don't know. I think it's easier to work with.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think the only reason I've just switched to like the Notes app, like Todd said, Apple Notes, is because I'm in so many different places at like so many different times. I don't feel like I have the time to sit down and physically handwrite notes. Like I'll jot something down really quick, but if I want to actually create, a backstory or something like that, I'll start it on my computer.
Right.
If I'm at my daughter's basketball game, I'll whip out my phone, add a couple little things to it. That's what I like using right now.
Well, of course, for like stuff like that. And especially if you're in Todd's position where you have to somehow keep track of everything that's going on in a world, you want some sort of way to organize that in a program that organizes it for you, because you don't necessarily have to commit all of that to memory as long as it's organized.
Well, this is the thing. And, Nathan, I like what you're saying about writing and how the retention with writing is better. And there's actually scientific proof behind that from a number of different studies. If you've ever listened to me before in any of these podcasts or in earlier videos, I talk a lot about Frank Wilson, the neuroscientist Frank Wilson, who wrote the book, The Hand. And he did a number of studies that sort of really proved that when you activate your hand, when your hand moves, and I'm not talking about typing on the keyboard, I'm talking about pencil, you activate some of the idea centers in your brain. And so your retention is greater. You actually generate more ideas and you evolve, right? So in a lot of ways, the screens and the very sort of micro movements of our fingers on a screen have caused us to be less able to generate ideas. So it's the food for thought. Now, that being said, do I get on the computer to take notes? Yeah, I do. I mean, I use Apple Notes. I have really fallen in love with Obsidian, mostly because of the visual graphic that Obsidian gives you that connects all linked things in this massive, beautiful tree. Love that. I also find Obsidian to be simplistic. And for me, it's about user experience. It's about intuitiveness. Not many pieces of software out there are genuinely intuitive, but Obsidian's not bad. There's like you learn a few rules and you're off to the races.
Yeah, I know you tried a couple of other ones in the past, but you've gravitated towards that one for the most part.
I go back and forth. I've been trying to do digital calendars to organize my life for a long time. And my wife has been saying to me, no, you need a paper calendar. I'm like, I'm a person of the 21st century. I'm like, I'm not using a paper calendar. Guess what? I bought a paper calendar this holiday season and I was like, this is fucking awesome. I love this thing and I'm using it and I'm actually doing better with organizing my life. So that's kind of a good thing. But I just figured we would chime in here. But this is actually a part for me to say, hey, you guys out there listening, head over to Wither and Bloom Studios on YouTube and find this video, or I should say this audio podcast on YouTube, and leave in the comments, what do you use for note-taking? What is your note-taking app of choice? I'd be curious to hear. I'd like to hear if there's something out there I have not thought of yet. I know a lot of people like World Anvil. I don't like World Anvil. And ever since World Anvil really gave me the shaft on my account, I don't like them even more. So, yeah, that's okay. I'm not going to badmouth them. I'll just say this. If you're a World Anvil user and you stop using World Anvil, absolutely make sure that you get your subscription turned off properly. Because if you don't, they're going to bang you for a couple $100 and they're not giving it back.
Wow.
Yeah, their customer service is ass.
Wow.
It's like this person could have made the decision to just say, yeah, I get it. Because you can see that I haven't used it
in forever.
And they were like, no, we're keeping your money. And I was like, okay, that's maybe not the best decision, but okay, bye. Yeah, it was a dick move. Anyway, that being said, all right, let's keep going. Let's talk about some other resources for creative world building that we like to use.
Here's actually I mean, it's something that's coming into vogue. So I know some of you watching the video are going to scream and kick a little tantrum, but listen before you act out.
Rage clicking coming.
No, seriously.
What is it? We listen.
Warriors.
You know
we
what?
listen and we.
I don't know.
I've seen that online lately.
Anyway, so I think for generating ideas, the resource that knows all the things and can just pump out shit for you if you need it to is, say it with me, ChatGPT.
Yeah, I knew you were going there.
Right. But here's the thing. I'm going to preface this with a disclaimer. If you think that I'm going to advocate for ChatGPT just writing soulless shit for you to put in your campaign, that's wrong. Because I think using ChatGPT just to write for you is entirely unimaginative and a complete misuse of the tool itself. This tool has access to so many different resources that have been put out into the internet, and you can use it to talk to it and bounce ideas off of it and like just put your thoughts into a box and have the box speak back to you. Not just in world building, but even in learning things for school. I will talk to ChatGPT and I will say like, hey, here's the scenario I'm in right now. Here's what I need you to do. Like I need you to do A, B, C, D, E, and then we'll just talk back and forth. So let's say like let's propose a scenario where I've made Nokrin from our Indira's Embers campaign. I say, this is my character Nokrin. I know he's going to be from this underground society. I want it to be centered around concepts of darkness and shadowy figures and stuff like that. What are some other directions I could take that related to this? And then it'll pump out like 10 different things. And if you like none of those, you can be like, well, I was sort of more thinking along these lines or these lines. You can keep talking back to it and it will just give more ideas back to you. And then you've done a whole brainstorming session right there. And then you can pick one idea and then go to your notebook and start to say like, okay, I like this idea. Where am I going to take this?
I mean, I'm going to stand behind that a little bit to some degree because I feel like as a tool that's used with responsibility and care, it can help in a lot of regards. Like for one, creative burnout is real, especially like I'm going to put this out there. I never, ever stop moving. I am constantly making, whether it is content for my world building or whether it is a 26-foot long set of built-in bookcases for my house, which I'm tirelessly working on right now. I never stop making. And my ideas, they come faster as a result, but you do get burned out. Right. And I think that, occasionally running over to ChatGPT and saying, hey, I'm burned out. This is what I typically do. What do you got? Right. Give me something to read. Give me something to watch. Give me some, like I can use it in that regard to basically say, don't necessarily write my ideas for me, but give me something to think about. What should I go do? Right. Nobody creates in a void. And this is like my mantra, right? You cannot create in a void. You need something to fill up that space. So 2 weeks ago, my wife and I went to the Met and we saw the Rise of Painting show, the Sienna show, 1300 to 1350 Rise of Painting, all these icons. And oh my God, just from the standpoint of the frames and situations the icons were placed in, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm putting these in my temples and in my situations in D&D. I'm using this, right? So you gotta charge the batteries. And sometimes the batteries can be charged by this AI source that can say, hey, did you think about this? And I'm like, no, but now I'm gonna.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you talk about like burnout. We're 4 people normally lately on this podcast. We got to a point where we were like, what's the topic for next week? What's the topic? And I, talking about burnout, we couldn't come up with, good ideas and we were bouncing them back and forth. I went over to ChatGPT and I just, went over there and I'm like, give me ideas for a D&D theme based podcasts, it shot out like 16 different ideas. And we actually grabbed a couple from that.
But we changed them.
We did,
right?
We tweaked them, but it was just ideas that then got my mind going. It's like, oh, we could work with this. We could work with this.
Right. Because those suggestions, which were just that, like, I mean, if anybody thinks that the way we talk on the show is scripted by an AI bot, they're crazy. But the suggestion of the idea says, oh, wait a minute, let me think about burnout now this way. Right. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to go pull out books on psychology. I'm going to go look up, texts, like white papers and documents online from psychological journals. I'm going to look up stuff on that and say, well, what are the real implications here? Like, what's going on? Yeah. So that can kind of trip me over the edge for sure. Now I know you guys are out there and you're going to be like, fuck these guys. This AI stuff is not for us. And you want to know what? I think there's an argument for that too. I am not just passively saying, let's just, this thing is in front of us. Let's just embrace it. I understand that there's a lot of problems to consider with this. I'm not immune to that.
Well, as with we're not saying like, oh, you should use ChatGPT for everything. No, in no way in hell are any of us going to say that you should base all of your thinking off of an AI model, that it should pull all the heavy weight for you. I'm saying there's value in using it in certain scenarios and how you use it if you're using it imaginatively.
Right.
Right. For the majority of the time, anything I write, I don't use ChatGPT. Anything I'm doing, I don't use ChatGPT, but there are scenarios where it's useful. As with any other tool, I can do simple arithmetic in my head. Some people can, some people can't. But it's a pain in my ass if I'm going to pull out a calculator to do like 7 + 5 when I don't need to double check that. There's some things that you just don't need the tool for. There are some things that you could use the tool for, but don't have to.
Right. So, okay. Yeah. And I totally think that's certainly, valid for lack of a better word. Yeah. I got a book I love to talk about. This is not a plug for this though. And one book that I use is from Kobold Press, and it's called The Campaign Builder, Cities and Towns. Now I know they have other ones out there, but this happens to be the one that I have. And it's a nice big chunky hardcover. This one's 4.5e, but it basically walks you through building cities and towns in a logical way that offers a lot in terms of its depth. It makes you think about things that you would not otherwise think of. So it's a full size, it's like almost 300 pages, I think, 250 pages or so. And it's got beautiful illustrations. It's got a lot of things to do with government and systems of commerce and ages of the city. Different NPCs are in here. There are new monsters introduced in here that can be used. There's a lot going on. Love to come and reference this book, by the way. So just thought I'd throw that in there.
You have other books like that too.
Oh God, yeah.
Just supplementing, getting ideas. It's a tool. Like we were, what Nathan was just saying. If you're in a creative burnout, reference something like that and, get ideas.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll just throw an example out there. I mean, it's got a whole list of NPCs that you can bring in, and they're simple. These are not game characters, right? These are not characters that have like fully developed backstories. It's like, okay, so we've got, the canny beggar. Armor class 11, hit points 13, speed 30 feet. His main trait is beggar's invisibility. If the canny beggar remains motionless and silent for at least 1 minute, creatures have difficulty noticing it. How odd is that? We tend to not see the homeless, right? A creature within 30 feet of the beggar can determine the beggar is present with a successful DC 15 wisdom perception check. A creature that moves within 5 feet of the beggar automatically succeeds on the check. The effect ends if the beggar moves or speaks. So, this is a very, very simple character and can be inserted into your story easily. And there's lots of people like this, from curators and lamplighters and merchants, sellswords. That's just one part of this book. So Kobold Press, people, Campaign Builder, Cities and Towns. Great book. Love it. Not getting plugged for that. So, or not creating a plug for that, I should say. Anyway.
Yeah, you know what? I guess that brings in a good point that there are certain pieces of world building where you don't need to reinvent the wheel. you don't need to burn yourself out coming up with like these simple NPCs that are going to go nowhere and do nothing, where there are good enough models that you can find online to do the job and to do the job well, while you can put your energy into other things.
Yeah, totally. I want to talk about a little bit, we just talked a minute ago about burnout and how we refuel the batteries around world building. I'd like to talk about some other ways that we refuel our role play creative juices. So reading obviously is a huge one. Like Garret, when you and I were going through Brandon Sanderson's books, you and I were like on fire, like conversationally.
Yeah.
This charges the batteries.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like this is just being immersed in that world and then, discussing it and going back and forth and just like, did you get to this part yet? It was just, the juices were really flowing when you're deep in something like that.
Yeah. It's so reading is one way, but what are some other ways that we can think of that, we kind of tend to charge these batteries if we need to charge them at all?
I listen to a lot of video game lore videos, and those bring me quite far. And to preface, it's not that I'm like listening to these lore videos and being like, oh, I'm going to copy and paste this into whatever I'm doing. But the way that like I like analyzing the way that these creators like build the lore for their games, and listening to people take these crazy deep dives into these crazy theories and then just letting those ruminate. And sometimes things like data and analytically driven society or the abstraction of darkness comes out of that, just out of curiosity and listening to these lore videos. And then I just want to push that further and further.
Yeah, I like that actually. And then, you're talking about not copying something like that. Agreed. And you're going to get called out for that in 2 seconds anyway. There was going back to Brandon Sanderson for a minute, there was a funny TikTok video on there of it's a guy talking to himself. He plays the roles of different people in his supposed conversation. And the DM and some of his players are sitting down to play one night. And one of the players comes in and he's like, yeah, how's it going? And they're like, yeah, good. What have you been up to? And he's like, oh, I've been reading. And then there's like this moment of silence. And he's like, you don't read. What are you reading? And he's like, oh, just some book. No, you probably haven't heard of it. It's by, and then the camera focuses right on his face and he goes, Brandon Sanderson. And the GM gets this terrified look on his face and he goes, yeah, there's some real familiarity in that book and this campaign we're doing right now. And the GM is horrified because, it's sort of like he was copying his campaign from that book series and totally getting called out on it. So obviously we're not going to do that. But I feel like you and I, Garret, we talked a lot about how certain elements of how the magic system in Mistborn and it being unique and interesting led us to try and create situations of other magic systems. I'm not going to lie. The Andira from Amakora in our Daggerheart series is kind of like out of the inspiration to say, hey, let's think of a new magic system. I like that. Another thing I do is I play other role-playing games, right? And I think we get a lot out of those.
We get creative. We've tried Daggerheart. We've tried other games and
10 Candles and
Shadow
Dark.
Yes. And reading these other systems and how they do things or their rule sets or whatever makes you think different of how you could incorporate some of that stuff. So no, that definitely helps doing something different.
I like to go back through some of the older, old school Dungeons and Dragons modules, the campaign modules, because they're a little bit raw and I like to sort of fill them in with lore. Right. They're very sort of map driven with a storyline, of course, but then I like to fill those things in a bit. What?
Nothing.
Sorry, you just said raw and fill in the same sentence.
Oh my God.
We're a bunch of immature.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thanks for catching that.
No, you're welcome.
All my ideas come and flowing out of me and you catch raw and fill in.
You think it was flowing out of you?
Awesome.
Wow.
For all you 10-year-olds listening to our podcast, you got
Next
Nathan.
up, poop jokes.
Nathan will be here all day.
Anyway.
So I think it's almost time for us to wrap up. I do want to add one other thing to the list of refueling the batteries. And this is kind of a shameless plug, but I kind of also want to update you guys on something that I know I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to try and convince my players to do it with me.
Hey.
But that is a little thing called PrinceCon. And PrinceCon is held at Princeton University in New Jersey in wintertime, and it is coming up. So PrinceCon 48. It's been going on for 48 years. Let me get into this. PrinceCon is a 46-hour role-playing marathon held upon the Princeton University campus every spring since 1976. An entire campaign is played out over the course of a weekend. The character you create on Friday afternoon stays with you throughout the weekend, growing more powerful and accumulating potent magical items as you adventure in a single world with many different talented game masters who act as storytellers and keepers of the rules. Now, reason I'm excited about this is, PrinceCon, first of all, they hold it in some of the old Gothic-y halls of Princeton University. And so it's kind of cool that way to go play there. This year's PrinceCon 48 is titled Spires, and it is from March 7th to March 9th, 2025. And they open with a little general synopsis, a little bit of a sort of precursor to the story. It's called Spires. It says, centuries ago, the green swallowed the world. It is well known that any who venture into it die, overwhelmed by the poisonous air, brought down by monstrous creatures that dwell there, consumed and then reborn as another extension of the green's all-consuming reach. Those few that survived did so by fleeing to the spires, great mountains that rise too high for the green to spread. There, a new society formed, one that abandoned the folly of the previous age to focus on the development of personal power, unlocking the potential within themselves, harnessing powerful combat techniques, and building a society of warriors, the likes of which the world had never seen. But this cannot last. One of the spires, those great mountains, has collapsed, and more may soon follow. Even the airship clans floating between the spires are afraid, for below, the ever-hungry green awaits for our fragile world to topple into its grasp. I am freaking psyched.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah. So I'm going to Princeton, people. So hope you join me there. Hope you join me. Guys, it's been a good conversation today about creative world building.
Yeah.
I'm excited to maybe turn this into a PDF. Like, we're going to start getting some of these ideas down. All right.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
All right, people, listen, thank you for listening. Number one, we love having you along for the ride. And please realize that on the first and third Tuesdays of every month, we are live playing Rising, our new season of Dungeons and Dragons with our group. We're live on YouTube. Please come over to YouTube and look for Wither and Bloom Studios. Join us by subscribing and then get in that chat on Tuesday nights. Check out what we're doing. We've got some unique stuff going on. And share this podcast. Share it with your friends. Spread the word about us. We would love to be, we'd love to bring along some more people for the ride.
Yeah. Just to throw out there, since our last live stream, like just under 2 weeks ago, we have gone from 600 subscribers to 696 by the time we started the stream. That's 2 weeks, almost 100 subscribers.
Yeah, 100 in 2 weeks. It's kind of nice. I mean, we're still very new. I have to say that our 1 year anniversary is coming up on the 21st. So our Rising Session 1 will be played and live streamed on our 1 year anniversary.
Oh, that's
nice.
That's
so
very nice.
Join us for that. I think it's going to be a really special night. All right. We love you guys, and we will talk to you soon. Brave the cold, brave the snow. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Mwah.
See ya.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to iCast Guidance. iCast Guidance is produced by Todd Lambrix, Garret Brennan, and Rich Frohman. We drop this podcast every week, and we are looking forward to having you hang out for more. Don't forget to head on over to Wither and Bloom Studios on YouTube, follow our channel, and definitely comment on what you see there. We will probably read those on this show. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to next time.